Good morning. Today I'm going to go over some handwriting without tears concepts and ideas. Handwriting without tears is a writing program that was designed by an occupational therapist. Her name was Jan Olson, and she has come up with lots of ideas to work with kids using some sensory concepts and some motor concepts that are very evidence-based. So I have given folks pretty little green slates, and some of them have a smiley face in the corner. When you're working with your child, you want your smiley face to be in the upper left corner. And he's called Smiley, surprisingly enough. And as we give cues, as we're going through things, we'll sometimes reference Smiley. So that's why we're going to want to have him oriented in the correct way. Now, I just went all out and gave you 2 pieces of chalk. I realized afterwards, maybe I should have given you like 4. And what the chalk is, I have 2 different colors in there. The chalk is broken into very small pieces. And the purpose for that is using the chalk in a shorter length. Number one, chalk breaks a lot, so you're gonna end up with shorter lengths anyway. But using that shorter size, when you are writing, you can see how automatically I have to hold it in a what's called a tripod grasp. So I have 2 fingers and a thumb that are working together to hold and stabilize that chalk. And so it works automatically. The muscles that need to be stronger for using pencils. So that's a good reason to use chalk. Now, when you're first working with your child, depending on their skill level, it might just be having them hold the chalk. See if they will make a mark. See if they will do some scribble. And at first you're probably thinking, oh, well, if they're just scribbling, this is not really accomplishing anything. But actually it is accomplishing something because it's working and strengthening the muscles that they need to use a pencil, and it's giving them what's called the motor learning plan, that we use these muscles and these fingers and this thumb to hold the chalk. Okay, so even if that's the only thing your child does with this, don't feel discouraged, because they are working on the skills that they need to hold a pencil. Okay, so when you use handwriting without tears as an instructional method, they use a method called, let's see if I tell you right, wet, dry, try. So let's say you're talking with your child about the alphabet. Maybe you have a letters book. You just went through the letters book, and you're gonna talk about letters of the alphabet. You're gonna start using capital letters first, because they are developmentally the easiest letters to learn how to make. And some children, because of their exposure, are actually just a lot more familiar with those too. So, for instance, if I was going to start with A, we're talking about A, and I'm going to say, okay, we just read about that book. A is for apple. Apple. A says ah. And I'm going to make the letter. Now, as I make the letter, I might do something like use the terms that are used in handwriting without tears. And those would be, let's make a big line. Let's make a big line, now a little line. So we're giving the size cues to the letters and the shapes that are used to connect the letters. So I can look at the child and I'll say, now you help me erase. So what I have here is just a wet piece of paper towel. The water on the towel, paper towel, it provides sensory input. And that sensory input can help a child remember the motor skill or the motor movements better. So that's her reasoning for using the wet paper towel. And plus, kids love it. It's amazing. Kids really love to do this. Lots of kids from different ability levels love this. So don't be surprised if, hopefully it's a thing that they're going to enjoy to do. So then you can say, okay, start at the top of the A. Now you do the big line. And if you need to, you can put your hand over there just a little bit to help them till they get the idea of the activity. Okay, now you do the next big line. Okay, now you do the little line. So that's the wet part. Then what you're going to do is you have a small piece of paper towel that's dry.
Teachers, I just want to let you know I forwarded an email of how to record attendance for today. I forwarded you an email.
Sorry,
how to record attendance
we have
today.
announcements. Okay, so you have a dry paper towel, and this is the dry part of wet, dry, try. So then you can say, oh, let's dry that letter. Let's see if you can you do the big line, little line. So this is familiar because they just did it. And then you're going to say, let you try and do it. Now you can see that the shape is still kind of there, and what you're going to do is maybe help them find that starting point and say, okay, now you do the big line, good job. You do the big line, good job. You do the little line, great job. What letter is that? A. A. And you can start to kind of incorporate some of the phonics with that in trying to do it. So, and then usually what I'll do is go ahead and clean that off. Sometimes kids like it so much that they'll want to do it again. You kind of end up in a cycle of practicing that letter, and that's okay because that's working on the motor skill and the motor learning plan for that letter and associating it. The other thing I was going to say is if you're going to do an activity like this, don't expect to do it for a really long time. Maybe 5 letters is the most. Maybe if your child is just getting used to that activity, maybe you do 1 letter and you say, okay, now we're finished. Let's clean up and let's put the chalkboard in the finish basket. Let's clean up the chalk. Let's put it in the bag, and you can help zip it closed and then let them put it in the finish basket. So what I would suggest, especially at the beginning of the year, is try not to stress yourself out with too many expectations. Try to start easy and build. And I think it's going to be a lot more successful for you. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go over some of the other terms that are used in handwriting without tears. So just as a reminder, the method that we just went over is called wet, dry, try, because you're going to start with it wet. You're going to make the letter. They do wet to erase it. They do dry to dry it. They try it. It is very positively reinforcing activity because they're always successful in making that letter. And so you can just pile on the praise and it can be a positive experience, okay? So all of the letters are described in Handwriting Without Tears as big line, little line, big curve, and it can go either direction, of course, or little curve. Okay, so I'll show you for some other letters how you would use those terms when you're talking with a child and showing them how to make a letter. So we've got, if I was showing them a B, I would say that's a big line. And then I would say frog jump up to smiley. Okay, so this is where I mentioned smiley earlier and didn't say, lots of our letters are going to start by smiley. And so for a lot of your what are called frog jump letters in Handwriting Without Tears, you're going to make a line down and then frog jump to smiley and do little curve, little curve. So let me just show you different letters so you start to get used to how she uses those terms. So we can say C is a center starter. So it's going to start in the middle and it's a big curve. Okay. D is going to be start at smiley, big line frog jump, big curve. E is going to be start at smiley, big line frog jump, big line, big line, big line. Okay. F. Start it smiley, big line, frog jump, big line, big line. G is going to be center starter, big curve, little line. Okay. H. Start it smiley, big line, little line. So hopefully you are getting the idea. If you come across a letter and you're having trouble knowing what verbal cues to give for that, just shoot me an email and that would be great. And I can give you some more cues on how to do that. For my younger children who maybe they started out just scribbling and working on hand strength. Maybe instead of doing letters, you do shapes or pre-writing shapes. So our pre-writing shapes are going to be a circle, a line down. See if they can trace the line down. Good job. You helped them hand over hand, line down. Line across, cross shape, the diagonals. Okay, and then any of your, let's see, we've got X is a pre-writing shape, and then any of your other shapes, triangle, square, rectangle. I don't know if I can fit a rectangle in that space. So if your child is not ready to do letters yet, I'm going to erase this real quick. Maybe you can say, I'm going to make a line down, you make a line down, and see if they can do that. Or if they're not willing to do that, you can say, oh, help me erase my line. And you can hand them the wet paper towel and you can guide them with your hand over theirs or your hand under theirs, have them guide you to erase that line. So you can kind of do some of those pre-writing shapes the same way, but just remember, even if all they're doing is some scribbling, they're still strengthening the correct muscles and learning the correct motor plan for letters. So I would really appreciate it if you watch this video and try some of the things with your child. You know, shoot me an email and let me know what skill level your child is at after summer break. And then we can start to design something that's a little bit more specialized just for where the level that your child is at. So I hope the video has been helpful. Sorry about the announcements. And feel free to contact me at any time. Okay. Thank you so much.